Jen, do you want to start and
Yeah.
just say who you are?
Yeah, sure. So I'm part one of Dynamic Insight Partners, one of the founding partners along with Steph. And I'm a certified executive coach and have been doing organization development and talent management for longer than I would like to admit, mostly with entertainment, media, and CPG clients.
And I'm Stephanie Salisian, and I'm Jen's partner at Dynamic Insight Partners. I've also spent the majority of my career in human resources, learning, org, and talent development, over 16 years at this point. Again, also in mostly high-tech media, gaming, and entertainment. And super excited to be having this conversation because it's coming up a lot.
Yeah, and I'm Amy Posey, founder and CEO of Super Mega Boss, which is a manager development company. So I focus on the managers of the world. I have 20, that's terrifying to say, 20 plus years of leadership development, manager development, change communication training experience, mostly with tech companies. So I speak fluent nerd. And Jen and Steph and I partner together on lots of different projects and just generally like to spend time with each other. So talking about stuff like this. So
Nerding out.
Nerding out on the people side of what's happening. And I think the breadth of our experience allows us to have lots of really interesting conversations and see a lot of stuff with our clients. And in our past, I'm seeing lots of interesting things. So I guess the first question of both of you, what are you seeing with clients? What are you seeing happening in the industries that you're working in with people related to talent development, and what's happening with the whole world kind of going digital real quick?
Jen?
Yeah, I was just thinking, wow, I feel like we're seeing a lot. I think I'll share more on the coaching side. I feel like what I've found is that the shift to virtual coaching has been great, where clients have obviously wanted to do more face-to-face stuff in the past, and that there's kind of a level of safety and trust that we're able to establish while people are working from home and haven't skipped a beat. But some of the problems and challenges that they're bringing into coaching related to this like quick pivot of so many businesses, I think have been particularly interesting. And I'm seeing a greater demand for real-time resources, jumping on the phone faster than kind of a normal executive coaching cadence, and leaders needing access to more resources and more support, kind of more than they have in the past.
Yeah, and I would say that in the early days of COVID, when the rug was sort of pulled out from under everyone, no one knew what to make of it. And everyone was like, how can we even do talent development and learning purely virtually? Even though we've always known that's been part of a blended learning approach. Like many of our clients relied heavily on at least an inaugural in-person workshop to kick off a development cohort or things like that. And now what we're seeing is the shift to virtual has worked really well, and we're able to replace some of those in-person experiences with engaging video conference content and with discussions over Zoom. People actually do feel more comfortable in their own private space. We find that a 90-minute time slot is the maximum that people can engage over Zoom. So the days of full day, team development workshops are sort of over, and bite-sized 90-minute or less over a series of weeks engagements around things like, team effectiveness or executive strategy sessions is working really well for us. And we've become much more astute at facilitating that way as well, which has helped build our skill set in the mix. So
yeah, and it's funny because a couple of years ago, like I did a few like momentum programs virtually, and I struggled facilitating them because I hated them. I was like, oh, I'd much rather just be in person and connected, and use sort of the relationships built in that in-person session to kind of carry through momentum program, to feel like, oh, we've got this connection, we can reflect effectively, have good conversations. I think at the time we couldn't even do a breakout room. It was just like a big, 30-person plus conversation. I'm seeing a lot of people sort of forced the need to rework their programs, and many of them are still in the midst of figuring that out, right? Like those sort of white glove sessions that they put on for, especially at the executive level, the senior leadership level, those they're reworking at least for this year, if not longer, and trying to figure those out. Some are sort of, I think, thinking about new programs that they need to put out because of the levels of stress people are feeling. Yes. So not just same old content, but virtual, but they're actually, I'm seeing a lot of people like putting together toolkits or sending out resources or thinking about different ways that they can set up, whether it's instructing people how to do something virtually or just to like keep people engaged, motivated, and not burning out. Because I notice people are working longer hours and trying to stuff more in the day and be on conference calls for 8 hours. Right. And it's just not like, that's not sustainable. So to me, it definitely doesn't feel the same as like what I used to do in terms of those things. But I think you're right. I'm also getting savvier at how to facilitate sessions like this. And I agree with 90 minutes. At the start of this, I did a 4.5-hour session, which was very long.
And we have clients that push back on us on the 90 minutes, and they're like, no, we can do up to a half a day on Zoom. And we're like, one, that's horrible.
Nobody wants that.
Yeah, you physically can show up for 4.5 hours, but mentally you're going to check out. I think one of the other things that was coming up for me, Amy, when you were talking is kind of two things. One, I feel like the work that we are doing now, kind of post-COVID, is really being focused around a roadmap. Like, what is this team trying to accomplish over time? And while 90 minutes feels appropriate for one session, we're really being thoughtful about how do we build momentum session by session, with whether it's a couple of days gap or a couple of weeks gap between session, giving people things to think about, process, reflect on, and then come into that next session prepared to share. And so the roadmaps, I think, have been super, super helpful. But the virtual shift, I think, has happened quickly, where people feel very comfortable, get in their space, getting in and plugging in, but there's some drain on energy levels with the back-to-back Zoom. So when we're coming in, even proposing 90 minutes, we have to remember these folks are coming in from hours and hours likely of other Zooms. And so how do we break up the content to be more brain friendly so that it's, realistic for them to actually digest something? And one of the sessions that Steph and I have been doing is on navigating change. And I think it was a couple of days ago, we led a client through a few different mindfulness techniques, simple breathing exercises. We had everyone shut off their cameras, lay down on the ground if they could, and we did a full body scan with them. And so giving them time and space to take a break so that they can actually engage, I think, is a really helpful thing for dealing with this, constant digital interface.
Yeah, and I would say the other component, kind of building on that we've really realized, is the acknowledgement that development now in the world that we're living in is very different, and being sort of acutely aware of how the world is influencing what people need, whether it be COVID or Black Lives Matter movement. People are very full of things that are hard and painful and difficult. And so development may not mean giving someone the skills to, influence up. It may be more like, how do you take care of yourself, your family, and your community? Or it may be, how do you keep your sanity when the world is falling apart? And so I think just the development needs need to be rethought through in the present time, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I've seen the same thing. It's that need to, put some of that stuff on the shelf right now that you might normally be delivering, and really think about those needs, particularly around, all of these things when you have to look inside and confront challenges cause stress. And so part of it is, how well were people coping with stress before this period? Generally not very well, and sort of balancing out their energy they spend on those emotionally draining things in our lives. And so I think from that standpoint, I'm seeing the same thing. People want new programs to be more effective from that standpoint. So where do you think this is going? What does the new normal look like? Because I don't think we're going to be locked in our homes forever. Although I'm not super mad about it right
not
now.
hating
But introvert's dream.
Yeah, right. Like it's not terrible, but like where do you think this is going? Where is the new normal going to land from a standpoint of talent development?
I mean, one of the things that I have appreciated about this time that I feel like is actually pretty energizing for me, and obviously we've all been doing this work a long time, is it feels like the old playbooks are getting thrown out, and the like, oh, what's so-and-so doing down the street, or what's this other firm doing? It's like, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter because it's not working. Everyone can equally say it's not working. And so I feel like there's a focus on like highly personalized solutions for companies. And we love doing that kind of work. We love understanding like what's different about your culture, about your strategy, and what you're trying to accomplish. How does that translate to your people and how they're uniquely different and what their needs are? And so spending more time in what we call the discovery, right? Like learning and understanding what the challenges are and what those specific needs are, to me, nets out a much more personalized solution. And I think that solution is best laid out on a roadmap of what are we trying to accomplish over a period of time, and that being fairly short, 3 months, 6 months, 9 months at most, because let's be honest, like our lives have changed so much in 3 or 4 months. So to me, I think that the trends are going toward hyper personalized kind of roadmaps of development where things are built over time, and are taking into account what that particular population really needs versus, oh, well, everyone does this type of development. Everyone does white glove executive development. Does that make sense?
I think it does.
It does. And then I would also say, sort of not on the flip side, but adjacent to that personal experiences, there's always been in our profession this, how do we deliver at scale? That's always been the question. Do we fly facilitators all over the world, like to give them this personal experience? Of course it wouldn't work to do that virtually. And I think what we're learning is that you can actually deliver effectively virtually at scale. And yes, there is certainly something lost by not being together in a room, but maybe not as much as we would pound the pavement over in the past. That's my early read on this, however many months in we are to this.
Yeah, I think that you're right, that the scale question's always been one that I've gotten a lot of pushback on too. And I also think that I've actually found some cool tools to engage people differently than they've been engaging with each other, and just like spicing it up. Like I've been doing some really interesting stuff with digital whiteboards and different types of like virtual survey tools that aren't just yes, no, but like there's GIFs and memes and funny things. Like you can create more of an entertainment experience in that. And then also using the magic of the breakout room, and that I still see people craving that need for those connections and that opportunity to share in small groups. And most of the tools we deal with these days do it. It just takes a lot more planning and a lot more effort from the facilitator standpoint, but it's totally doable, totally worth it. And to your point, Jen, on this discovery process, I think it's a useful thing for anyone in talent development, whether you're internal or external, to spend more time doing that. Because I know a lot of people are rejiggering strategy, thinking about like, what does this look like in the next 12 months? What does it look like in the next 9 months, 3 months? And I think the idea is, taking it in small chunks. Like right now, you do have to sort of throw the playbook in the trash and say, all right, what do we think we need most for the next 3 months, and go do it. And I think that's one of the things that I'm seeing a lot of, is people are like coming together, figuring out like, okay, what is going to work now that we couldn't have dreamt of before, and how do we execute on it? So that's kind of the thing that I've been thinking about when I talk to clients about like, what's next, what can we do, and I think a lot of them are reevaluating their strategy, reevaluating their spend, which is cool because now they have all this money that they're saving on plane tickets that they can build and create, right? Like it's, I mean, you know, if they're still a functional business and not worried about keeping the doors open, which I know is still an issue, but they've got a new opportunity to rebalance how they spend in this medium term. And to me, that's exciting because it's like, then you can invest more on those development experiences that you didn't have in your library before. And so I think people are going to burn out unless you give them those tools and skills to be able to sort of avoid the stress that they're all going through, to expect the same amount of work from them.
Yeah,
So
I think we may see, I feel like we may see coaching be cascaded down further, and coaching at scale.
I hope so.
Coaching, like team coaching, coaching in pods, virtual pods. And then, you know, the other thing I'm thinking about is one of the principles that we know about adult learning is that people learn when they're like just on the edge of uncomfortable, right? Like you're not unsafe, but you are paying attention because you're like, is my teacher going to call on me, or is this facilitator going to call on me? And I think that works to our advantage in talent development right now, is like people don't know what to expect in these virtual sessions or virtual workshops, especially if they're in a company where they're used to showing up at an offsite location at a hotel for a workshop or for an all day or a couple of day retreat. And so let's use that to our advantage to say, this is new and different. And because it's new and different, people are showing up differently and they're like primed to listen and learn. And so I'd like to think that companies are going to take that opportunity and, Amy, to your point, the spend and the budget, and think about what's kind of highest priority here. Is it that our, you know, middle management layer really needs more coaching, more real-time coaching, and intact teams need, you know, more resources around self-care and self-awareness, right? So be thoughtful about what the needs are, but use that learning opportunity to full advantage.
I think the other thing, I'm sort of going in a different direction here, but it's something that I think, Amy, you guys at Super Mega Boss are really good at, is different delivery mechanisms outside of that are virtual, outside of a Zoom classroom or other, which is, you know, content drops by SMS, content drops on Instagram or Facebook or social media, meeting people where they most engage with content. And I think that is definitely something that is a wave of the future. Even we, you know, whenever we do something virtually, we try and plug our Instagram page for our clients because we drop content there, or we curate content that's coming from others. And that's a way to get micro learning that's relevant, that's just in time. And it's where you're already scrolling Instagram anyway, or you're already checking your text every 3 minutes. So I think that's another prediction, is that a lot more will move in that direction.
Well, and I've tried to adopt that stuff early just because I've seen it work, and I've tried it in various formats in the past, but that content drop in those small nuggets when you need them, I love that. Like that, to me, that just in time, that super quick. And I think you're right. It's meeting people where they already are, which is important. I've also tried, and I'm experimenting with and trying to still figure out like the idea of the book club, because I still think like people are reading short articles, but people are also really digging into the long read, like especially with a lot of the DEI stuff that's going on with Black Lives Matter. Like people are getting really well read really quickly. And I think using books as a platform for conversation and leadership discussions. I just finished one today actually with my books, shameless freaking plug for this guy. But the idea that you can use different contexts and platforms to have these discussions as well, that it doesn't always have to be like a deep course that takes a long time to build, right? Like you can stand up quick solutions to keep people connected, but also reflect, you know, write and journal and connect and think about how they're going to use the things that they've learned in books. And so, because I'm a literary nerd too, like part of that is I think there's having the ability to curate, or at least go to resources that you trust to curate well, is super important. Because I also am seeing a lot of like junk out there, like really fluffy, like not useful things that say the same thing over and over. And so I saw a stat like managers spend about 20% of their time just trying to find stuff. And so if you can figure out a way to curate, and you don't have to have people swimming through something that you think is great, like, oh my God, we're going to sign up for some huge, learning package that has 75,000 courses. Like, you're then going to put the onus on your managers to figure out their learning. No. Like, curate. Like, curation to me is one of the skills for talent development leaders for the future. Like, you don't have to build it, but got to know where to find it and how to package it so that it's easy for people to use. And I think that's that, meeting people where they are and finding the stuff. I saw like Pinterest did something interesting. It was like super simple. Word doc, here's how to handle your stress. Do these 4 things, every week for self-care. I was like, that's great. And that's not fancy. Anybody can do that. So I'm into those kind of low tech solutions, but I also do like, meeting people on this thing, because we spend a lot of time there.
I feel like the curation is super important. And then the next step to me is like, you've got to foster those connections and put people in pods or in groups or in cohorts so that there's a mechanism for them being able to talk and reflect about what's working, what's not working, what am I trying, what am I reading? Because I think whether we're digital or in person, so much of what we learn is coming from other people and our discussions of that. And so I feel like how do you foster those connections around a book or around a particular topic? And the benefit now is this, it's so much easier to scale, where in the past we've had to think through, okay, well, what do we do with a European cohort or someone in Asia with someone on the, on the West Coast? Like, how do we deal with all that? Now it's like, well, it's pretty easy, right? It's pretty easy to manage the logistics of that versus having to fly people all into a location. So I think there's a big piece around fostering connections and putting people in groups where they're going to have a really insightful conversation.
And then I think the last point is, I was just reading an article on NPR, and Jen, I think you saw it. Amy, I don't know if you saw it, but it was basically, it was an opinion piece, but it was basically saying, like, get a comfortable chair, because we're working from home for a long time. Even in the world after COVID, a lot of organizations are giving up commercial real estate space, saying work from home forever, and they're finding that it's just as effective. But the one area that's the biggest loss is that human connection. And so I think if the world goes in the direction of a virtual work world on a longer term scale, or even forever, it'll be even more important to foster what you're talking about, Jen, which is those personal connections.
For sure. Cool. So those are some good ideas around, now that digital transformation has hit talent development hard and fast, and like, no denying it. Because I feel like, we've spent a lot of time talking about how do we prepare other people to digitally transform their industries, but like the talent development industry there'd been pockets, but it hadn't sort of hit the need for that. And now it's like, okay, we're going to give you that opportunity right now, go. So thanks, COVID. But I think good things are coming from it, and interesting methods are coming from it that I think will help people. So just wanted to have this interesting conversation, throw our thoughts out there. Where do we find you guys on social media or elsewhere? How do we get in touch with you?
We're easy, just at Dynamic Insight Partners on Instagram. And you can also find us on LinkedIn and Facebook. Just search for Dynamic Insight Partners, 3 words. And then also our website, which is dynamicinsightpartners.com. And awesome. How about you, Amy?
I am at Super Mega Boss on Instagram. I'm getting into TikTok. Oh, that's fun.
I can't wait.
Nice.
The pineapple suit's coming soon. Scripts are being written. And on LinkedIn, Facebook, all the good stuff. And Twitter. We've got a new presence on Twitter. We just joined Twitter the other day because we've just launched a couple of new free courses in those SMS formats. So nice. Want to put that out there.
We're scared of Twitter right now, but
yeah, Twitter's a lot. Like,
it's a lot. Yeah.
Don't overdo it on Twitter. I've like created a nice little this is just like HR and interesting learning and development news that comes my way, and I can pretty much shut everything off, which
nice.
is probably good. Smart. Set limits.
I think it's easy to get into a rabbit hole. I'm scared to go down that path.
It is. Yeah. It certainly is. But there's a lot of people on there, and they're worth connecting with. So I'm gonna give it a go. So, all right. Well, thanks.
Cool,
Thank you
thanks.
both, Stephanie and
Thank
Jennifer.
you. This was
And
fun.
Yeah, thank you.
yeah, why not? Like, we'll put it up and hopefully people enjoy it, you know, put some stuff in the
First of
comments,
many.
connect with us. Like, why not? All right. Thanks, everybody.
All right.
See ya.